Strategic list building. Hi guys, my name's Deepak Shukla, founder at Pearl+Lemon+Sales. We're a sales training and development agency based in the UK as well as the USA and serving clients worldwide. And here today, in day number 103 of 119 days of cold calling training, we're here to talk about the strategic list building approach. But before we get into it, feel free to click the link in the description below to get access to 17 additional strategies that are not shared in this training. So look, this is quite an important one with strategic list building, and it really relates to the way that the lists that you have are built and the way that you attack the lists that you have. So fundamentally, when you run a campaign, you're going to get given data. And what I'm trying to talk about today with the cold calling approach is just raising to your level of consciousness how to manage the data that you've got. So you're going to given potentially a bucket of unsorted or unstructured data, or you're going to be given, of course, a list of companies, or you're going to be asked to build your own list. There's going to be these variations where you're given a big list, you're asked to build a list, or you're going to have to build your own list. So they may give you contact information without, or rather company names of their dream 100 clients. You might just have to go out and build a list, or you might get given like a real shitty list of leads. Now, depending upon what happens, there's just a couple of things that I really want to raise to your level of consciousness when you're thinking about how to attack lists. Okay, so we discussed already, you've got mobiles. Mobiles are always high value. Okay, so treat mobiles with love. Okay, then you've got landlines. So that's just the company general landline. And there's going to be a lot of resistance on landlines depending upon the size and kinds of businesses you're calling. Okay. Some companies just have if you don't have a name policy, then we're not going to put you through. Some companies have an email only policy. Some companies are so big that you're going to be several steps removed from the correct decision maker. And sometimes even the person you're talking to won't even know who the decision maker is, depending upon the size of the company and the type of the company. The bigger they are, the more complex it is, or it might be a switchboard, and the more secretive, or if it's a security company, if it's a law firm, if it's financial services, if it's consulting, then you might meet a higher level of resistance versus a retail outlet. But then you've got different challenges. The managers, in and out within a retail outlet. So you've got mobiles, you've got landlines, you've got direct dials, and then these are like directly to an office. And within landlines, there's also big, because if you're calling, for example, into different industries, then you've got to think about, for example, the industry and the pickup rate for that industry or the type of industry that you're calling. Some places have great pickup rate, others don't. So, are you calling B2B? Are you calling B2C? Are you calling what's the location of where you're calling into as well, and what difference does that make? So to give you some practical examples, because I think that this might be a little bit abstract, we had a campaign where we were cold calling restaurants, and we definitely found that the closer that we got into a city center by postcode, the more difficult their dialogue was because they were just damn busy. The further out we went of that city, the easier things got, but the less affluent as well as the less effective was our calls, because there was level of English problems with the product we were trying to position. When we went outside of, for example, major cities, and we went to small cities with less than 1 million, our, for example, level of pickups increased, our level of talk time increased, but then there was also problems with qualification because they weren't just as qualified by, for example, metrics of revenue or otherwise. But these were all interesting elements to denote as we worked through different campaigns. When we were calling restaurants and we were calling CBD and vape shops, we've been calling pharmacies. It also applied to B2C based upon postcodes as well. So postcodes also lead to certain assumptions. So when you look at lists, there's also, for example, job titles, which is an important one, like the job titles of the people that you're calling and what you think that means in terms of if they'll answer, how they'll answer, whether you can call them back, whether they've got time to talk. So, if you're calling, for example, service repairmen, then they might be often on the job. If you're calling, for example, office managers to offer them an office management product, they're going to have a high pickup rate because they're office managers. Their job is to pick up the phone often in an office. If you're calling, for example, a cleaning company, then they're maybe often on the job. If you're calling a plumber on the job, he might always pick up because it might be his next client, but then he might be with a client. So he'll say, look, can you call me back? So there's all of these elements that become important when you're thinking about the list that you're building, and therefore, or the list that you've been given, and therefore how you approach each of these lists with the variations of mobile, landline, direct dials, job titles, B2B, B2C, industry, location, and therefore just think about how and what you approach, because it really can affect the outcome of the cold calls that you place, as well as the communication you give to your client about what to expect if indeed you're calling for a client or you're calling for your team. So all I do in this training is to invite you to consider these nuances and therefore begin to sort lists out. And this really carries value when, for example, you've got either an unstructured list or you could build your own list, and there's different dynamics that are at play. If you've got several potential audiences, then you do want to segment it by, for example, industry, location, because if you can call up and down the UK, then think about some of these things. Like, we can offer this to any shop anywhere. If you need to get results out of the gate, you might want to call outside of and they've got low qualification criteria, like it's a free product, we just need shops to sign up. Then it might be the case that you start calling in small cities because in towns, because you'll get high pickup rate, high acceptance. And then as the campaign evolves and they need, for example, restaurants as an example, by higher revenue numbers, then you need to dive into some of the bigger cities to start finding restaurants that are doing better numbers. And then that begins to have different challenges. So think about strategic list building, think about the commercial goals of the campaign and how that then influences what you need to do from a list approach perspective once I assume that you've sorted out the list based upon any predefined logic according to what the client needs, as well as what you can assume about the niches, the industries, the titles, the people, and all of that good stuff that you're going to be calling. So there you have it, guys. Strategic list building approaches for cold calling.
Remember, we've got 17 gated strategies just waiting for you. All you need to do is bing, subscribe, as well as click the link in the description below to get access to those 17. Get some.